Am I live? Good. Sorry. Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and Change. Great show for you today. Got the Dean, Bill Kurelic here, and the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. We got a commitment over the weekend. We will talk about that. There's crystal balls rolling from California to Columbus. We'll discuss that. Our guys were out on the road this weekend and saw some possible future Buckeyes. We'll talk about that. I got an ad for you to read, but I want to tell you this as well. If you ever considered subscribing to Bucknuts and getting a premium membership, today is the day to do it. It's the last day of our 75% off sale. Basically, you get 9 months of the year free. So you could sign up and not pay again until basically after this season is well decided. We are not going to make another offer better than this. We do have more offers throughout the year, but 75% off to start the season, I'm telling you, is the best offer we're going to have. So if you ever considered being a premium member, if you ever considered giving that away as a gift, if you ever considered trying to help Bill Kurelic and Mark Porter pay for expensive goods for their children, this is the time to do it. 75% off. Cannot get any better than that. Can't also get any better than Factor Meals. And I know I read a lot of ads on here. This one I truly believe in because I raised accidentally food snobs, and that means microwave is a no-go. This stuff is good. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. 2 minutes. That's it. No matter how busy you are, you'll always have time to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals, 35 different meals to choose from, 60 add-ons, breakfast to dessert, vegan, protein-based, whatever you want to do. You're keeping kitchen time to a minimum. They're ready in 2 minutes. No shop, no prep, no cook, no clean. No clean, which when you were like me last week and you were taking care of your dog and your son, which I should be able to do, but I haven't developed that many skills, Factor came in very handy. Head to factormeals.com/Bucknuts50 and use the code Bucknuts50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code Bucknuts50 at factormeals.com/Bucknuts50. You get 50% off your first box. Excuse me. 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. That is some good stuff. More good stuff coming. The Dean, Bill Kurelic, the Grand Poobah, Mark Porter. All right. Ohio State played a football game this past weekend, and they won, and it was fun to watch, and we got to see all the new jerseys flying around. It was great. However, something else happened later that evening, and that was the commitment of Phillip Bell, wide receiver out of the California area, to Ohio State. Bill, you've been doing this for years. Have you ever seen someone commit to Ohio State from a yacht before?
You know, not only have I never seen that before, but I was talking to Greg Biggins, our California guy, Southern California guy, I might add. And he hadn't seen it before, and he's been out there in California for he's done this just about as, not quite, but maybe just about as long as I have, and he hadn't seen it, being a Cali guy. So certainly not the ordinary thing. Also a 10:30 p.m. local time commitment. Not exactly the normal thing, but that's exactly the way it happened, and that's exactly the way Ohio State would like it. They got a commitment from a guy they really like, and they've got 4 wide receivers in the class committed now, and it's a really good group. It's got guys at the top, so to speak. You got Quincy Porter, who has looked really good to open the season, and who Ohio State beat Michigan for. That's a good thing. You've got Phillip Bell, pretty highly ranked too. You've got more of a developmental guy in BP Miller, and you got a guy, Desai Jones. So really, it's a good group. And we've talked about Ohio State doesn't want to stack 5 stars on top of 5 stars necessarily because they tend to all think they're going to play right away, and that's not necessarily going to happen at Ohio State. They look to transfer. This is a group that I don't think you're going to see that same type of thing happening.
We say that as if the players who are coming in are guaranteed to be redshirted, et cetera. They're losing some stuff. I mean, they're going to lose Emeka Egbuka this year. Jaden Ballard will be moving on possibly. So there's guys to watch. There's guys to be on top on. Mark, you want to take some look at Philip Bell, or are we not doing that?
Yeah, we are. My screen kind of went blank here, so give me a second to refresh. The thing I've noticed is he's a 6'2" receiver, and Bill was kind of listing the receivers in the class. Hartline has kind of changed his type. We joked that like Olave and Garrett Wilson were all 6-footers, 5'11". Not this new class. Philip Bell 6'2", Quincy Porter 6'3". So yeah, we've got some bigger guys. I think the success of the Marvin Harrisons and guys like that have kind of opened the door for some of these bigger guys here. Let me see if I can pull this up here.
All right,
and you know, with Philip Bell, that he can one of his strengths from watching is that he goes up and gets the ball. He may be 6'2", but he's a guy that red zone, he can go up and get it if you watch his video.
Yeah, he's an impressive dude. And look, if you're going to, like we talk about sandwich classes, because, you know, playing time in cash, I don't want to get too overboard on that. They're still getting some tremendous players. Philip Bell is a really good receiver. And if you're going to gamble in the sandwich class, and I don't even call it a gamble, I like the idea they're going for prototype size. I think it's easier to get pushed out when you may not be up to the standard physical specifications, as it were, for guys like that. All right, Mark, you're not protesting Philip Bell, are you? All right, here we go.
There we go. Yep, it's all working now. There we go.
So 6'2", 195 pounds, as a high school senior, you're talking about a guy that might be able to play at over 200 pounds. I mean, I would expect that if you're 195 without Ohio State's weight room involved, wouldn't you think?
That was the first point I was bringing up when we didn't have videos. Is this size thing is now something we are embracing. You know, like these guys are bigger. Jeremiah Smith, the Marvin Harrisons. This guy's a little bit stringy at 6'2", 195. Like he doesn't look like he's totally filled out. Chris Henry's the other one, 6'4". So we're definitely taking these bigger bodied receivers in these last couple of classes. And yeah, they're going to be big red zone guys, high point guys. But when you talk about 5-star guys that are 6'3", 6'2", there's some of that elite route running ability where they come in and out of breaks. They have a route tree they can get into. It's not all just speed and jump balls and posts down the field. That stuff's all part of it. You see them down here coming through the middle. It's nice to throw that big target. One of the quarterback's favorite ball to throw is a post down the middle because it's right down where you can see it, you know, right down the middle of the field. And here comes another one. So this new bigger receiver, I shouldn't say new, but I think there's a trend here where we're definitely seeing our class fill out with bigger guys where after a couple of years of these classes stacking up, you know, this receiver core, you put 3 or 4 of those guys out there, talk about the matchup problems with trying to match up with 5'10", 5'11" defensive backs.
And BP Miller, by the way, don't forget he's 6'4".
Yeah, yep, Bodpeg. BP. Call him the gas station. Fill up there.
Yeah. It's the idea of a third-string cornerback covering one of those guys is a stretch. That's really the advantage Ohio State get. I don't care how you recruit at corner. If we're putting 4 guys on the field that are that good and we can do that, you're going to have a mismatch on almost every single play by design. And how many teams get that out of their third receiver? Usually you're trying to set things up for your first guy to get open.
You know, and there are developmental guys that are 6'3" and 6'4" that have that limited route tree, and you see those guys take it, and you're like, will they be okay? These guys have a route tree. I mean, they stop on a dime, they accelerate, they have the burst and explosion, which is the rarest trait when you're that big. The bigger you get, the better chance you have of losing the elite quickness and the burst, but not when you're picking from the top of the tree.
It's funny. Teacher is having a conversation with our crowd about how nobody throws the ball towards her son. And I bring up this point. Of course, we're talking about Devin Sanchez, the best high school cornerback in the country. And I said this yesterday on the show with Dave. There was a time when Denzel Ward was on Ohio State where the second corner was not Denzel Ward. And if the other team threw at Denzel Ward in the first half of the game, I knew Ohio State was going to win big because I knew the other team had no idea what the hell they were doing. You don't do that. So I'm not even sure Devin needs to wear pads for games this season. I used to have this running joke. I don't know if you guys definitely don't remember this, but Mike Tyson was on the David Letterman show early in his career. And Tyson was known, you can go watch this. Many of his original fights didn't get past a minute. And the first question Letterman asked him was, do you even shower after fights? Like, there was a player named Evan Royster. I don't know if you guys remember that name. He played running back at Penn State and then for the Redskins, but I covered him in high school. And he was so dominant that after one game, I decided that was going to be my first question. I'm like, are you even going to shower after this game? And he's like, that would be gross. And I said, he didn't get the joke. But Devin is going to be in the Evan Royster treatment. He may not need to bathe after games. He can just go right. He'll be the first one at the post-game party getting the sandwich because he's not going to get challenged. And why would you? But I digress. All right. Bill, that's not the only thing coming from California. It started last week. There was a crystal ball rolled, and then there were multiple crystal balls rolled from Blair Angulo and Greg Biggins. And you say, why is that important? And I say, it's because those guys are out west. They work for 24/7 Sports. They're in the recruiting game. And both have crystal ball class of 2027. 2027, people, if you want to feel old. Quarterback Brady Edmonds from Huntington Beach. Quarterback at Huntington Beach committing as a youngster. I'm sure that guy struggles socially. Quarterback. Is this the quarterback of the future, Bill? What's your thoughts on him? And is it too early for a crystal ball from a quarterback? Are we looking at a guy that's going to transfer to every major school before he lands in the Midwest, like at Nebraska? No pun intended, or no joke intended.
Well, in his case, it's not too early because he has a possible early decision in mind. He was at Ohio State's camp this summer. I talked to him. He told me that he probably would not make a summertime decision, being this summer. But he said anytime after that, whenever he feels ready, he could make a decision. And now he's narrowed his list down to 4 schools: Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, and Texas. And the interesting thing is he told me he wants to play in the Big Ten. Last I knew, although this almost changes daily and seasonally at least, Texas, last I knew, wasn't in the Big Ten. But maybe it will be in the future. Who knows? So, he told me he wants to play in the Big Ten. And he has an Ohio background. His grandfather was born up in the Cleveland area, Cuyahoga Falls, and his family have long been Ohio State fans. So when you put that all together, certainly it makes sense. This is a Chip Kelly type guy that, Kelly's, putting his imprint on the quarterback recruiting now. And certainly it's not a shocker that it would not be a shocker that he would end up at Ohio State. He does, though, have some game day visits. He is planning to be at Ohio State for the Nebraska game, and then he has game day visits to Texas and a Penn State game as well. So, it's not a done deal that he's going to commit without taking any more visits because he has some others planned, but he also could make a commitment before then as well.
I'm just going to speak for myself here. This is not the dean. This is not the Grand Poobah. If you see a quarterback ranked this highly, I believe he's number 2, Bill, in the top 247.
Number 2 in the country.
And it's now going to be an upset if he does not come to Ohio State. That's just a fact. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to get ahead of the game here or build anyone's hopes up, but our guys like Angulo and Biggins just wouldn't do that unless they had a little vibe, a very strong vibe. And when you consider what we're talking about here, 6'5", 210 pounds, reddish hair, so he's got a baby face. Here comes a 40-yard side back shoulder, they'll tell you. Good Lord. That's a hose.
You nailed it. I mean, 6'5", 210, that's what you better throw it like. And then he's going to show off the feet here. He can actually get out and run a little bit. You see some of the guys chasing him. They're not really gaining ground or anything. So more than acceptable speed for a kid that big, which, that's tight end or better speed, maybe even receiver speed, depending on, what he looks like in the open field. Ohio State, Chip Kelly, these guys are taking big, strong arm guys. Then, you see the escapability there. We'll kind of talk about him while he's making plays. But they need to reach parts of the field that not every quarterback can reach. This guy's got a nice video here that's broken down like I would do with his arm strength, escapability. But, he already checked the box and arm strength on that first throw. That's about as good as it gets. He's going to fire some seam routes here. Being this young and this polished and this far ahead of the curve does not shock me. He's the second-ranked, player in the country or one of the top quarterbacks in the country for this age. There's a lot of seniors that wish they had tape like this sophomore year, 2 games into the season. So checking a lot of boxes. I can't wait to see what he looks like 2 years from now. Will he be 230, 240 pounds? That's where Will Howard and some of these other guys are. That's where Anthony Richardson is in the NFL and Josh Allen. So he's got to have that NFL-type body here very shortly, it looks like. But, yeah, impressive film for such a young guy.
Yeah. Let's see one more throw here before I pull this up.
Yeah, the motion and delivery hold up. He looks like he's flicking it, doesn't stress at all to make the big throws.
His feet are flat. That's what I look for. If when he gets under pressure, he's not having to, to get the ball to another platform, what they call arm angle. He's not having to reset. He's just whipping it. So you want that at 6'5". And like you said, 6'5", 210. Good Lord, what year is he? He's a sophomore.
Yeah.
That's incredible. God, I'm getting old. Holy mackerel. When it's 2030 something, I'm out. Yeah. When your son is getting recruited, that's going to be the sign for me to hang him up. So you guys got a couple more years here. All right. Bill, before we talk about what happened over the weekend, I want to read an ad here, but get your stuff ready for visitors, who's here, etc. I don't know if you guys listened to the Wednesday show with Bax and Dave, but Bax, his son, is a big-time young hockey player, which means they spend a lot of time in Canada, which means he had to learn French. If you ever been up to Canada, they speak in Ontario, in Quebec, a lot of French. So he did it, and he learned it with Babbel. The best way to learn a language is immersion. But you can still learn a language the second best way, and that's with Babbel. 1 in 5 Americans have learned a new language on their bucket list. If that's you, make 2024 the year you finally check it off the list with Babbel. Learning actually is possible with Babbel. You get a little bit better every day. You're learning a new language. It can help you start speaking in just 3 weeks. And imagine what you could do that in a full year. 10-minute sessions are handcrafted by over 200 language experts to help you start speaking a new language. Like I said, 3 weeks. It's proven. If Bax can do it, you can do it. He is the people's champ. We have a special limited time deal for our listeners. Right now, 60% off your Babbel subscription, but only for our listeners. Babbel.com/Bucknuts. BABBEL.com/Bucknuts. Rules and restrictions may apply. All right, Bill. Now, Tavian Sinclair lost, and Bell Fountain lost to Bellbrook over the weekend, which hurt me personally because Bellbrook is Oakwood High School, where I live, our arch rival. My kid's got a better record against Bellbrook than Bell Fountain. That's disappointing. However, I heard he was tremendous. And I will say this about Bellbrook, and as I digress like I like to do, when my daughter was a cheerleader and I had to go to the games, I started working the chains. so I could have an excuse and be entertained without having to sit next to all the other parents complaining about the football team. So, Mark, you would know this, and Bill, you know, when you work the chains, you're basically standing with the other team for the entire game, and you really get a sense of their coaching staff. Having done it for a couple of years, I'll say this. Bellbrook was, and do not aggregate this, and no one from Bellbrook listened to this, pound for pound, I thought they were the best coach team that Oakwood played against. Continuity up front, did not have the biggest line, but they moved in unison. Their coaches really never lost their cool on the sidelines. You can really, if you want to get some R-rated content, go stand on the sidelines when a team that's supposed to be beating Oakwood is losing and their coaches are losing it. That is an
I can tell a coaching staff right away. I tell you what, when coaches start cheering for their team, like, "Hey, get in there! Come on, somebody make a play." You know they're terrible. You know they're terrible coaches.
They're begging.
They're begging. Yeah, begging for results instead of saying, "Hey, get to his inside shoulder. Use that rip we worked on. Hey, get out. Get over here and watch the flats for this." Coaching and cheering are two totally different things, and there are staffs out there that should be holding pom-poms throughout the game and not clipboards. I mean, Dan, I'm glad you brought that up. And Bill and I, we're on the sidelines. You get a sense all the time for this is the racket that's being run in this town, or this is the sharp edge of discipline. Very, very astute point from you.
You also, as you walk around, get a sense of which head coach really has his staff intact, because you get 15 yards away from them and you start hearing them talking about the head coach making bad decisions. You know he's up the creek without a paddle. However, William, I mean that only as an entry into the fact that I saw Tavian was at the game this past weekend. There were others there. Let's run down maybe the guys that were here this past weekend and what your thought on their status is.
Well, since you mentioned Tavian St. Clair, let's go ahead and start with the commitments. They had 8 of their commitments in the game for that, in the shoe for that game, which is pretty impressive because it was Akron. Let's be honest. So they had 8 commitments led by Tavian St. Clair, and Carter Lowe was there. Certainly that's another big one. You always like the big guy to be. Bo Jackson, Riley Pettijohn from Texas. Great to get him up there to Ohio State. Jake Cook, no surprise. Eli Lee, not really a surprise either. And Chris Henry Jr., that's a big one to get back from California, was at the game. And, speaking of Chris Henry Jr., he didn't come alone, so to speak. He had a couple teammates with him. Not that they all traveled together, but they were at the game. Caden Dixon-Wyatt, the wide receiver the Ohio State's offered, and Sean Scott, a linebacker edge that Ohio State's offered. He was at the game. So getting those modern-day guys is always a good thing in Ohio Stadium. Then you had also Donovan Murph, the wide receiver from South Carolina, that they offered this past weekend while he was here in Columbus. And he's kind of growing up with the Buckeyes a little bit. So that's somebody to keep an eye on for 2026 wide receivers. And then speaking of 2026 wide receivers, Jaden Ricketts, who Ohio State has offered, local kid, Pataskala Watkins Memorial, was at the game. And then the defensive backs, Jacob Weatherspoon, Victor Singleton, Albert Hill, they had a lot of – really was a pretty darn good group, considering that, again, it was Akron. And 2027 guys, D'Angelo White, tight end that I love, and Mark and I saw him at Ohio State's camp and were very impressed. Was at the game. No big surprise.
Where's he from?
He is from Cleveland, St. Joe. He is a teammate with Bo Jackson. RJ Day, not surprisingly, was at the game. Ryan's son, quarterback from DeSales. And you had a bunch of Pickerington North guys and a lot of other Ohio guys there. So it was a good group overall, really, of guys at that game on Saturday.
I watched Modern Day play last year. I like to tune in to – I'm a nerd, preface it. I like to tune into the national games when I really haven't got a good sense of who each guy is. And then I'll get my nerdy rosters out, and I'll start looking guys up. The guy, when I watched Modern Day last year, the first guy I looked up was Sean Scott, and he was a sophomore. And he is a maybe Jerome Scott. Jerome Scott. That's embarrassing. Jerome Baker type, just super athlete. They were playing him all over the field. Sean Scott I hope he's a major, major priority. Okay. Mark, let's talk about the game we watched, Ohio State versus Akron. We'll get to some recruiting at the end to finish up, but Mark does a tremendous feature for us each week called Buckeye in the Sky. And then so it's a Buckeye in the Sky, Ohio State 52, Akron 6. And then what we'll do is we'll break down a few key plays from the game to let you guys know, one, Mark knows more about football than we do, and two, it's helpful when you slow the game down. I'll say this, football is like no other sport when you go back and watch it on tape. You can think one thing happened and find out another thing happened way more easily than the other sports we see. But Mark, take us through a couple plays here and explain to us what's going to happen.
Yeah, when you get to slow things down, you really see the game of chess, maybe checkers it's being played sometimes, but this particular play right here is a little bit of chess. This is 6 men in the box, and you can see them all lined up here equally. Hard to tell who's coming and going unless you did some studying the week before and you knew the numbers of the linebackers, you knew the numbers of the defensive linemen. Then you kind of increase your chances of going, Now you're looking at the man-to-man coverage. That safety is awful far off to be playing man-to-man. So there's your first tip that either we got to go hot to this slot receiver or he's got to come up to go man-to-man. As you let these plays start to, play out, you see how much confusion could happen for the Ohio State quarterback. This isn't going to be an all-out blitz. This is going to be not even man-to-man, which is what you would have thought in the pregame snap. It's going to be a zone blitz, and you'll see the 2 linebackers right there drop out, and I'll pause it there. You still have, is it man-to-man or zone? It looks like man-to-man there. It looks like man-to-man, but it's going to turn into zone with these guys covering zones underneath. So this quarterback, in under 2 or 3 seconds, has to process that. And then remember what he's been taught in practice. Okay, if it is going to be, and with them doing this zone blitz, I should have pointed this out. With them walking those guys up, the Ohio State offensive line had to count those guys and honor them. So when 6 guys are up versus only 5 offensive linemen, you're short one. And the quarterback knows that one of these guys would come free. What was neat about that Akron blitz is they took 2 guys off to the weak side and still stayed heavy over on the left side, which one of these offensive linemen on the left is blocking air now. He has no one to block because his guy blocked out, and there's a free runner coming off the other edge. So great scheme by Akron to dial up a free runner and not have to play man-to-man behind and actually play zone by it. So give their defensive coordinator one. Now, Will Howard, knowing this, and this is what's so awesome about quarterback play, he's processing this whole thing here with a guy running free to take his head off. And as we watch this, he does a great job of processing this, stepping up, avoiding the rush. Now, what's so nice about Will Howard is you buy those second opportunity chances, that off-schedule play, and then you have the time for the routes to actually open up, because I doubt if any route was going to break crisp and clean for him while that free runner was coming. So it just took us 2 or 3 minutes to describe what was going on there. Will Howard did it in under 2 seconds. Not too bad by Will. Maybe we'll go one more play like that. Conversely here, we have Akron that's going to bring 2 linebackers, but they look like they're sitting back in a zone defense. So you're thinking, okay, linebackers off the ball, pretty vanilla, cover 1 man-to-man is what you'd look for. The safety over the top here, he's cheated to this side, which I thought was unique because there's Jeremiah Smith. Like, if he's really cover 1, you kind of get in the middle because you would have to go to either 2 receiver side. He's already said we're going to this side. When I saw Will pick the one-on-one to the side that was shaded, I would have probably went to the other side and said, you know what? Maybe I'll look to Jeremiah's side, get the safety over here, and then take Emeka or whoever, my second best guy, one-on-one. But his confidence early in that game in Jeremiah, was it evident or not? I mean, he was putting balls in his direction. And it's really hard, I guess, for that safety to get all the way to that sideline there with that well-thrown ball. I mean, that's about as well-placed as a ball as you can get to beat a safety that was cheated to the side that you kind of knew, you were going to. Cover 4.
If you watch that play, though, the inside receiver, Emeka's first step is inside, and it freezes the safety for one step. And that one step is all you need. And this is what you learn from the All-22. I actually learned this. I'm not going to say about the Cowboys. I found out that Roy Williams was terrible at football when they found out the All-22 and he was a safety that couldn't cover. You watch on the All-22, you're like, why don't they throw at him every play? And they did, and we got rid of him. But watch this. The first step is inside. It freezes him for one step. If you lose one step on Jeremiah Smith, it's a touchdown. I'm sorry, Mark. Go ahead.
No. So this is a great thing.
Boom right there. Steps
freeze.
Back.
Yep.
He's done. Yeah, he's done.
He's probably worried about the slot coming down there. So
he's done.
Yeah, those nuances, Dan, that's what's fun to sit here and watch these things and rewind them in slow motion. And, we could really do a whole podcast just geeking out on these different types of concepts. Ohio State, that's a very vanilla coverage. This play I thought was really great. This quarterback for Akron is going to give this running back a pump fake. And if you see the linebacker right here, he's going to have to widen, or you just dump it to this guy and he's outflanked to contain. So this Joe Moorhead calling plays for Akron, he's got some designs. When you see the pump fake from the Akron quarterback, that opens that little area there because the middle guy's got his eyes. If you're here on the running back coming out of the backfield, he's got his eyes in the flat. So two guys coming out of the backfield take the underneath coverage where they want it to be taken, and this is simply just a hitch route into that open area. On this copy of this, I comment this should have been a completion. It's going to hit that guy right in the freaking hands. How that's not a free 10-yard gain or whatever. But poor Akron, you finally dial up a concept, work it really well, and Ohio State ball going the other way. There's a lot of plays here. I think we did 10 plays this week. I don't know how much we want to give away to the fans here right now, but these Buckeye in the Skies, they're fun to do. I know the fans are asking questions. We want more offensive line breakdowns. We want, this guy to be taken a little, more, examine him a little more. We'll do all that in due time, but Akron might not be the best measuring stick to gauge our season on, and there will be some bigger fish to fry. So, yeah, stay tuned for more Buckeye.
Moorhead, though, you made a good point. Joe Moorhead, head coach at Akron. We all remember he's been around. He was the guy at Oregon calling plays when
Penn
they won
State,
the last
Oregon. Time. Yeah, he's been a few places.
And also, I'll say this: when it's the first game of the year, Joe Moorhead spent an inordinate amount of time over the past X months looking at Ohio State. I don't care what anyone tells me. I don't think Ohio State did that with Akron.
But we pointed out the vanilla coverage by Ohio State. Hey, here's right out of the box, day 1, 4-3, cover 4 over the top, everyone same distance. I mean, that's not the 3 safety look we're used to seeing where everything's disguised and you don't know where, people are coming from. Yeah, so good point there. That's why I said it's not really a measuring stick where we pulled out anything out of our back pocket. It was we better be able to line up and run zone. We better be able to line up and, hit a few of these with great pass protection, but nothing schemed up the way Akron was scheming up. In fact, there's a play that Akron used on a 4th down where the tight end motions over behind the center like he's going to take the snap. Then he goes the opposite side. Then it's a fake run this way with him sneaking out. And Joe Moorhead unloaded on that play. That's something you save for Kent versus Akron, game on the line, and we want to beat Kent and we want to win the MAC and stuff like that. He used it against Ohio State on a throwaway key 3rd or 4th down where it's not
his backup quarterback. Yeah, they had the backup quarterback playing receiver. And one thing I did notice, and I'll say this about Ohio State defensively, and having watched a bunch of teams, I don't think any quarterback is going to be able to drop back 30 times against Ohio State and emerge fully intact. I just don't see that happening. I saw Dylan Gabriel throw the ball over 40 times over the weekend. If he throws the ball over 40 times against Ohio State when they go to Eugene, he'll make his share of plays. But as Mika said, felt really bad for Finley. You'll feel really bad for Dylan Gabriel too. There's just no way someone is dropping back 40 times and not getting smashed. I was so impressed with Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry and Hero Canoe, and that's their second defensive line. I'm just psyched that in most programs, I know we take a lot of crap here about transfers and stuff. In most programs, Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson would have bailed. 2 guys who were guaranteed, thought to be a junior starters at defensive end. people come back and they stay. We talked about this yesterday. The 2 touchdown turnovers were forced by backups. You know what I'm saying? Edric Houston tipping a ball. And then Hero Canoe forcing the quarterback, and Caden Curry smashing him from behind and Lathan Ransom's on. So depth is certainly a key. All right. William, any thoughts on the game that you were impressed by? Any things that surprised you?
Well, nothing that was a huge surprise. Impressed wise, I talked about this on the after game show with Dave Biddle that obviously Jeremiah Smith was impressive, but I was really impressed with Will Howard. You know, we had talked about how Will Howard runs very well for his size, and we talked about that today. That when we were watching those clips of Edmonds, Will Howard's a big guy, and he can run some people over, but he can run away from some people too. And that I really love the fact that Ohio State again has a quarterback that, when needed, can run the ball, pull it down, and make plays. I just think that's so essential to your offense. So I was impressed with that. And you know, some people were worried about his slow start, maybe going into the spring game and all that. I really loved what I saw of Will Howard.
I would agree completely. It's not statistical. I'm just talking eye test wise. And I hate to do this, but this is going to happen this year. Will Howard is going to be compared a lot to Kyle McCord. Just, we have to get over that. That's happening. It's not personal. Just the way things go. He looked so much more comfortable back there than Kyle did. Last year was really just Marvin Harrison, and then what else could we do? If you notice in this game, the ball was spread around. You asked yourself, how Judkins look? Pretty good. Henderson, pretty good. Tate, touchdown. Egbuka, should have had a touchdown. Jeremiah Smith, is he good? So they spread the ball around too. James Peoples got a touchdown. So I like the fact that in the locker room this week, there's no one looking at anybody else saying, oh, you got a free touchdown. Or they managed to get the ball to everybody. Everybody got a taste. And I'm hoping they build a approach here where, you know, if Will Howard does get all the awards, it's for the group because you can't pick any one individual out. Although if Jeremiah continues to produce at the level he does, I think the spotlight will shine pretty bright on him. All right. On Thursday's show, we will get into preps a little bit. We'll look back at what happened this past weekend in Ohio, and we'll take a look at what's coming up this week in Ohio. Bill, are there any hot recruitments we need to know about in the next 72 hours or so, or are we kind of into a weekend visit-based recruiting vibe now going forward?
Well, I never say never in recruiting. You know, there were some very good players at Ohio State this past weekend. And, you know, again, Donovan Murph getting an offer from Ohio State. And, you know, you had 3 wide receivers in the horseshoe on Saturday that have offers from Ohio State. 2 of them, Jaden Ricketts, already had an offer, of course. Caden Wyatt Dixon already had an offer. As well. And I said, Caden Dixon Wyatt. And then you also had Donovan Murph getting an offer. So they got to sit there and watch Jeremiah Smith in his first game as a Ohio State Buckeye. If that's not a convincing argument that Ohio, if you're ready and you're good enough as a wide receiver, I don't care what the depth chart is, you're going to get the play. So, you know, I think that's noteworthy.
I'll say this, and I talked about this with a really good NFL source who I've cultivated for this year to really help out with the boarding house. And neither one of us could get our mind around the fact that Jeremiah Smith is going to be here for 3 years. Is that even possible? I can't even get my mind around that. The idea that 3 years from now, what is Jeremiah Smith going to look like? I mean, is he going to be the coach? Is he going to be, you know, I don't even have a way to put it in context.
I'm hoping it's Megatron.
Staggering. Dude, Megatron was at Georgia Tech and it was really physically gifted. But if you go back and watch, I mean, he was. I don't want to get into comparing.
Yeah, but I mean, like that's with that type of development. If he gets any faster or gets any bigger or stronger, adds any weight. I mean, Megatron was like 230 pounds or something.
There's no if. He's 18.
Yeah,
he just turned 18. There's no if.
Hold on. I have Megatron as like one of the best receivers I've ever seen. I mean, he drew punt recovered, double team. You know, like he was a freak among freaks, as they say. I mean, that's the type of air Jeremiah Smith is going to be breathing in a couple of years. I mean, Terrell Owens. I mean, think of those NFL guys like Terrell Owens, and you know, I don't think Randy Moss is the comparison. That's more of a Chris Henry, a more thinner guy. But Megatron at that 220, 230 pounds, you know, Jeremiah Smith keeps getting bigger and physical. Boy, I mean, it's hard to throw out comparisons that fit his body style.
Yeah, I want to make a point here. Hollywood Hager made a good point that I wanted to make. Will Howard missed only one throw, should have been a TD. That play should also have been a sack. Yes, I thought the play that Mark showed where he eluded the rush, the extra rusher, got out and hit Jeremiah Smith on that. By the way, Jeremiah not just good at going deep, good to adjust, come back and extend the possession. However, I do believe Kyle McCord would have been sacked on that play. That is what Will Howard is going to give you. He's a big dude to bring down. The linebacker that went to get him, I looked it up. I don't think he weighs as much as Will. And that's an advantage back there, man. All right. Bill, also have to ask about this. Naeem Offord, Alabama-based corner, committed to Ohio State. The idea of getting Devin Sanchez and Naeem Offord in one class is borderline fantasy stuff. But a crystal ball was rolled all the way from Tom Loy's environs in the Midwest to Auburn for Naeem Offord. Your thoughts, and we'll end with that.
Well, we talked about this as well in the post-game show with Dave Biddle on Saturday evening, I guess, when the game ended. It's not shocking. I mean, we've talked about Auburn, we've talked about Alabama, and we've talked about Oregon with Naeem Offord. Really, it's much more Auburn and Oregon, and more Auburn. I mean, he's a kid from Alabama. As I mentioned, Auburn is working hard to flip him. They are having a good recruiting season. They are effectively, let me say, using the NIL. They have money to spend, and they're spending it. And they're working on Naeem Offord. So, I'm not saying that I'm predicting he's going to flip to Auburn. I'm just saying you got to keep an eye on. I've been saying for a while, you got to keep an eye on Auburn there. That they have not, by any stretch of the imagination, given up hope of flipping him.
Look, we've gone through this. It used to be the joke about Florida kids that their verbal commitment wasn't worth the air they spoke it with to in terms of retaining their commitment. In this era, an out-of-state star, you're going to be forced to ride that one all the way to the end unless you get a group like this one where it's going to be solid. It's just the way it is. And really, I'm not sure I can blame those people. You only get one bite at the apple in a lot of cases, and you want a juicy bite. So if that's what he's in it for, so be it. I think Ohio State will be just fine regardless. I hate to say that out loud, but they have proven that no one guy is going to ruin a recruiting class. Let's hope they can close it, though, because the idea of having Offord and Devin at the top would be tremendous. David, I see your question about the offensive line. We'll get to it on Thursday. We're at the 44-minute mark. Now, everything after this costs double, and we can't do that. Appreciate you guys stopping by. Have a good one, Bucknutters.